Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
The Hilton sale is on. Now through September 29th, you can save up to 20% on stays this fall and beyond. Long weekends, last-minute getaways, holiday gatherings. There's a Hilton stay for all of them. More moments, more experiences, more destinations. Now 20% off for a limited time because it matters where you stay. Don't wait. Book by September 29th and save up to 20% at Hilton.com. Terms apply. Hilton for the stay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Underrated Movie Podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss films that are underrated, underappreciated, and ones that have gone under the radar and passed most people by. I am your host, Derek McDuff, and today we are going to be discussing the 2000 thriller supernatural film written by Billy Bob Thornton and directed by Sam Raimi, starring Cate Blanchett, Giovanni Ribisi, Hilary Swank, Katie Holmes, Greg Kinnear, and the reason we're here today, the one and only Keanu Reeves. And joining me to discuss the film is the author of the book, Much Ado About Keanu, A Critical Reeves Theory, Sazine Davy Kohler. How's it going?
Hi! Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here and talk about one of my favorite. Actually, this is one of my top 5 Keanu films. So, yeah,
okay, nice.
Because my top 5 is mostly deep cuts. So this is up there, and it's the criminally underrated. Like if you have a section of that on the podcast, like this belongs there because how for 25 years this movie has been overlooked, and it is so good. Oh, it's so got so many levels, man. I'm really looking forward to diving in with you.
Yes, very excited to talk about it here with you because, yeah, this is a movie I think I was aware of, but like was not even really too familiar with. And when we were initially talking about it, there was a lot of obviously underrated Keanu stuff that you talk about in your book. This is one of them, and I was kind of like, there's a Keanu Reeves movie with Cate Blanchett. It's like a spooky thriller. Sam Raimi, one of my favorite directors, directed it. So I was very interested in that. Before we get too far into that, obviously you're a Keanu scholar. You literally wrote the book on the guy. What did you want to let the people know about the book before we dive into the gift specifically?
So the book is really my homage to Keanu as an incredibly talented performer. I feel like a lot of the discussion about Keanu is about him being a really good person, which he is. He's a delightful human being, and I've met him a bunch of times, and he's so wonderful, and he's so lovely. But he's also a really fantastic actor, and I feel like a lot of times the discussion about him, about his persona, it overtakes his acting, his work. And he is infamously a workaholic. And so why we're not talking about his work, that baffles me. And so that's why I wrote a whole book redirecting the conversation toward his brilliant work. And this is The Gift is one of the films I talk about quite a lot in the movie because his work in it is extraordinary and terrifying. And there's so many details about this movie that I love so much. And so I hope that folks will check it out after listening to us dish on it because, man, this movie, and it's a 25-year anniversary this year. So like it really needs a revival. So yeah.
Yeah. Very, very excited to talk about it here with you. But yeah, as you mentioned, this is one you talk about a ton in your book. You know, I was reading the book and definitely, read the chapter on, I'm not finished with it yet, I will admit, but I'm really loving it so far. I definitely read the chapter on his underrated films. I read all the parts about The Gift. So obviously you have a lot of compassion for this movie, a lot of love for it. This was a first time watch for me. I was very out.
Mm.
Spoiler alert. I loved this movie. This is a great one. I'm so glad that this is the one we chose to talk about. But what do you think about The Gift overall?
I think, well, one of the things I love so much about it is there's just so few Southern Gothic films, and I feel
Mm.
like this is one that really falls into that genre. And the fact that it's directed by the guy who did Evil Dead and Spider-Man,
Yes, yes.
it's not just underrated for Keanu. I feel like it's an underrated film for everyone in the movie because
Mm-hmm.
everyone brings their A game to this film. Cate Blanchett as the psychic, wow, she is
Yeah.
brilliant. Hilary Swank as this like battered woman married to Keanu Reeves, as abuser character, and like, wow, she's phenomenal. Katie Holmes as this socialite. Greg Kinnear. I mean, not to like
Yeah.
spoiler, like not to give spoilers, but like,
Oh, we can
wow,
spoil it.
that
We can spoil
oh
it. Yeah.
my,
Full
because
spoilers.
like I feel like that's his first villain role. When when that, especially when the film came out in 2000, like Greg Kinnear was like, he was the good guy. He was Mr. like happy go lucky. He's always in comedies. He's so lovely. He's so likable. And you have this like turn where like Keanu is Mr. Likable, and in this film he's the domestic abuser. And then
Yeah.
Greg Kinnear has this twist in his character. I mean, everyone in this film
Even
is
Gary Cole is hitting it out of the park in this movie. Like I love Gary Cole.
yes, I love him too. So good. And oh my gosh, I mean, all the bit players, even all the people in the sheriff's office, so incompetent. Like, I mean, like just I feel like they all understood the assignment, and
Mhm.
that's what makes it to me so criminally underrated. Because how is a movie with such good acting, such great writing, the performances, everything is so good in this film, and it just has somehow escaped everyone. Like when I mentioned that it's one of my top 5 Keanu movies, most people are like, "Wait," and they get confused because then there's a new movie that came out called The Gift
Right.
that has
The 2015
Jason.
one.
Yeah, which is not good. Like,
Yeah, it doesn't
I
look
mean,
good.
it's fine. It's fine. It's okay if you just like if you're really into like these weird kind of stalker or thriller kind of films that are kind of ambiguous or whatever. It's fine. It doesn't even compare to this gift. And I'm like, why would you just take this
Mhm.
title? Like it's because again, this movie is so underrated that they're like, oh, nobody even knows about Sam Raimi's The Gift. So like,
Mhm.
let's just use this title. Like, oh, insert eye roll here.
Yeah.
No, it's just wrong, just wrong. So, I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, that new movie called The Gift, I already hated it even before I watched it because I'm like, how dare you take the title of one of my favorite Keanu movies? Like, what is
Mhm.
wrong with you people? There were so many other things you could have called it. The Present. You could have called it The
Right.
Present.
Yeah.
Why do you take The Gift?
Anything. Yeah. Yeah.
Because this isn't even about a gift. This is about her like having this power, right? Like
Mhm.
she like Kate Blanchett's character Annie is she's got a gift that she has dreams about the future. She reads cards and she then dreams and knows what's about to happen, and it's not a gift, right? It's a curse. So the title of the
Yeah.
film is ironic. It's she's Cassandra, and
Yeah.
she's fated to not be believed. And wow. And I mean, and then you see like the way that her gift is manipulated through different characters in the film. I mean, oh my gosh, I've probably watched this movie like 100 times, and every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, is this so good? Like you don't see it coming. And I usually have the gift where I know what's going to happen in the film. Like
Yes. Yes. You and
you
I are
know,
the
I
same in that respect. Yeah.
yeah, because if you can read people's faces, you're like, oh
Mhm.
wait, something's up with these two, like something's happening here.
Mhm.
But like this ending floored me, and I think even now I just remember how I felt the first time I watched it, being so shocked by the Greg Kinnear switch, and just being like, that I just did not see it coming. It was his performance masterful. All of them should have been nominated for awards, and just bothers me that that this
Yeah.
to this day, like nobody gets recognition for this film, and it's so excellent.
Yeah, it's really a shame because, like, yeah, this is a spectacular movie. I didn't really know what to expect going on, other than this is a movie with Keanu. It's as I said, Sam Raimi directs it, and interestingly, like, this is a movie that comes out about a year after The Matrix and about 2 years before Spider-Man One. So, like, this is like
Yeah,
you're getting like a real convergence of like two people that are like really popping off, and you mentioned so
yeah,
many supporting characters in this, and obviously, I think Raimi notices a couple supporting characters in this because obviously Rosemary Harris and J.K. Simmons are in this, who would then go on to be very
Mhm.
important characters in the Spider-Man trilogy. So
Yeah.
he's got obviously a real eye for performances, which I think you see in a lot of with them and everybody else in the movie. But yeah, like watching this, I was like, wow, this is incredible. And I really
Yeah.
had no idea going in what it was going to be. When I saw that Keanu was like this wife abuser, it was like, this is a very different role that I'm used to seeing
Yeah.
Keanu in, you know? And
Yeah. Yeah.
you obviously talk about Keanu, and we'll get into it probably at some point later, but like his like identity, his like, you know, how he's like supposed is like kind of white passing in a lot of movies, and you know, people put that onto him, and how he's kind of like a good
Yeah.
old Southern boy in this, I think is really interesting. And he drops racist remarks at some points, and he's just this terrible person, but he still brings some
Yeah.
humanity, as does everyone in this, especially
Yeah.
I'm a huge. It's on the record that I'm a huge fan of Kate Blanchett. Like I am a stan for her to
Oh.
this day. Like I mean, even up to the
Mhm.
like Black Bag, I'm just like, you know, which is 25 years later, and she's still like gorgeous and killing it, and just you're like, yes, Queen, please go off.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I
Yes.
just love how weird and like, you know, you said there's not a lot of gothic supernatural thrillers like this that are especially like the South. And this felt to me like if someone was like, hey, let's make a like a classic 90s early 2000s John Grisham movie, but put that like Sam Raimi spin on it. So like it's got all these
Yes.
supernatural things, and people are like there's definitely hints of like that Raimi like Evil Dead vibe in it, where
Mhm.
it's like, you know, like she's seeing these horrific visions, and then, you
Oh,
know,
they're
when
so grotesque,
right?
yeah. Mhm.
Or when Katie Holmes gets kind of like drug up from like underwater, like that is like she's
Yeah.
like that is a horrific scene, and then like the dad is like, "Dog,
Yeah.
get those hooks out of my dog." Like there is some
Yeah.
gnarly stuff in this, and I
Yep.
absolutely love everything that Raimi was doing with this. You know, like this is,
Yes.
you know, I've seen a lot of films that are kind of like folk horror, right? You know, like Midsummer. Like there's a really great
Mhm.
documentary about folk horror movies. This feels like a folk thriller, right? It's not like straight up
Mm.
horror. It's more like a kind of thriller that you would see, you know, a more like, oh, who done it mystery type thing than like here's a straight up horror movie. But it does still have
Yeah.
that folk like southern like, all right, we've got a fortune teller, and they're gonna tell us,
Yeah.
and the cards are gonna tell us where the body at and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and like you said, the mystery in this is so good because
Oh,
we're on the same page. I'm usually like, okay, I can kind of tell who's the bad guy in this, what the big
yeah.
twist is going to be. This person is either way too sketchy, or they
Yeah.
seem like way too nice, and they're obviously like the bad guy. But this one,
Yeah.
it gives you, it doesn't spend too much time on any of the characters, because it feels like it really could be any number of people, right? It could be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
obviously we know it's not Keanu Reeves, but we're like,
Yeah.
okay, could it be Greg Kinnear? Could it be Hilary Swank? You know, could it
Mhm.
be you know, could it be Gary Cole? There's that whole scene where she's like, because you know, it gives you enough reason to think maybe it's him. There's because she's
Yeah.
Katie Holmes is having the affair with him, and when she's like at his
Yeah.
office, and he's like, "All right, what do I have to convince you to drop this case?" You're like, "Get out of there! Get out of there!
Yeah.
He might be the
Yeah.
murderer," you know. But
Yeah.
then, and then
Yeah.
she's like, and then she goes. So it's like that John Mulaney bit where he's like, "Never go to a second location," and she does that twice in a row, where she goes to a second location to go see Gary Cole, and then she goes to the creepy murder lake with
I
Greg
know
Kinnear,
with
and you're like, "What are you doing? Get the fuck out of
oh,
there!" You know? And yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and then
Wow.
Ribisi kind of comes back as a ghost and saves her,
Yeah.
which cause at first I was like,
Oh,
okay,
I love it
some one of
so
these
much.
male leads is gonna come back and save her, and I was like, all right, whatever, that's fine. But then the fact that he's a ghost, and this ghost of like, you know, after he's been
Yeah.
through this tortured past and the sexual abuse and
Oh,
everything, like, and he comes
yeah.
back, and you're like, it works so much better, the fact that he is like this ghostly figure that saves her, that connects into like
Yeah.
her power, you know, her spirituality, her ability to reach
Yeah,
out
her
to,
gift.
exactly.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I think all of that is
Yeah.
really fantastic, you know.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think, and one of the things that I talk about in my book about Keanu's heritage, because he's, he's Indigenous Hawaiian and Chinese as well as white. He's multiracial, and so, his when you bring his heritage into account, there are a lot of indigenous and a lot of Asian people who live in the South. I mean, I lived in
Mhm.
Florida for 13 years and I was like one of like five. So like,
Yeah.
so I feel like that's also like a really important moment for Southern Gothic to have an Asian
Mhm.
person, an Asian and an indigenous person on screen, because there are those folks living in the South, and
Yeah.
it's a
Shout out real
particular.
fast to Sinners because Sinners has a great Asian
Yes.
couple in it. So yeah, and shout out
Yes,
to, and also a lot of
yeah.
indigenous characters. But yeah, so finally
Yeah, it
25
does.
years later we're seeing it, but this was an early example of it.
Exactly. But again, this is again back in 2000. And so, to have just a Keanu's presence by himself, like he brings that representation. And I think that's
Mhm.
that's another thing about this movie that I really, really love, is that, Keanu in unexpected places like that, he brings a whole another level of nuance to the story. And the fact that he's the first one who's targeted, right? He's one of
Mhm.
the only people of color in the story, and everyone assumes that he's the killer, right? And so,
Mhm.
like, I find that the racial politics, when you bring his heritage into
Yeah.
it, also just adds a whole other level to what it means to be accused of a crime in the South when you're a man of color, right? So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I feel like there's that aspect too, to add to the Southern Gothic, because that's another thing about Southern Gothic, is that there is always an underlying racial tension somewhere. And so
Mhm.
without Keanu in the film, you wouldn't necessarily have that in the same way. And so I feel, again, his presence makes it, just takes it to that level that it needs to be in order for us to call it a Southern Gothic, in my opinion. So yeah,
Yeah.
and so I love that about him in this film. And one of the cool things that I learned, actually, when I was working on the book and researching all the different movies that he was in, so he actually punches, Kate Blanchett and
That's
Hilary Swank. Like, yeah, so they rehearsed and rehearsed, and the women were like, "Okay, it's all right, like, hit me," like,
yeah.
and so they practiced, and so they took those punches. And when you watch the film with that in mind, it's like, wow, it honestly, like, it always was painful for me to see that, but I also thought that this was just, they weren't actually doing it. But then to find out that he's actually hitting them with their permission, wow, that to me made those scenes even more horrifying because they're real. And
Mhm.
and Kate talks about how she had bruises, and like Hillary as well was like, and they consented to it. So like they knew that they
Mhm.
were going to
Yeah.
have bruises, but that like they had, for them as well, it was scary. And again, it brought another level of realism to the story that it wouldn't have had, because you can, man, I mean, because I always could feel those punches, and then to find out that, like,
Mhm.
yeah, I was feeling them because they were real. Like, that wasn't just him pretending to almost get there. It was like he fully punched Kate Blanchett in the stomach, and she fell over and was out of breath because he actually knocked the wind out of her. Like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, that's brave.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and for the women in particular, I'm like, dude, like letting it, wow. Yeah, and that Sam Raimi was like, "Okay, cool, go for it."
Yeah.
Like, never mind
Yeah.
insurance, like, all these other things, like, "Yeah, yeah, go for it. Just, like, if everyone's okay with it, just go ahead, punch him, give him all you got." And he
Right.
did. So,
Yeah. And
I just, like, and the thought of Keanu punching women is just, like,
yeah, it's
so
crazy to like,
wrong. It's so
yeah, because
wrong,
he's
but, like,
so like loving and just like such a defender of like women and
yeah,
people like that, and just like it's wild. And but I think it
yeah,
really speaks to something that has become in recent years so prevalent and so much a piece of Keanu's personality is like his willingness to just be so real when it comes to doing stunt work, right? And I just watched
yes.
the
Mhm.
documentary Wick is Pain, which is fantastic. I really recommend it to anybody out there, but it kind of talks about the kind of history of all four John Wick movies, their development up to like their release and everything. And
Yeah,
how integral the stunts are to those movies and how much of it Keanu does. And he's like, I can't do everything. He always makes sure to shout out the people who are doing all the stunt work that he can do, but whenever he can do something, he's kind of like a Harrison Ford, where he's like, yeah, I'll do it,
yeah,
and something that he's uncredited, but Keanu's stunt double from The Matrix works on with Chad Stahelski worked on this movie it as stunts. Who, of course, he would go on to have a decades-long relationship with Keanu, and he is the director of all 4 John Wick movies.
Yep.
So you can really see, even in a movie that you wouldn't think of like the stunts as being a huge thing in this movie, but obviously that thought with Keanu and his collaborators is always there. And I think this is the second time they've worked together. You know, obviously he was his stunt double originally on The Matrix, and then they had this collaboration that kept going and going and going until eventually, when he was ready to direct his first movie, he was like, all right, I got to get Keanu on here. You know, I doubled for him. I worked with stunts for him. So let's get together. And so, yeah, it speaks to the collaboration. And I think the collaboration in general on this movie, like, everybody really knew what they were doing. And I think that's why I'm so surprised that this one has gone so, like, I'm kind of embarrassed I never got to really see it before or talk about it, because even the people who I've seen talk about it and like it, like they covered it on Blank Check, obviously, when they did their Raimi series, this is one that, like, people are, yeah, it's pretty good, you know, like, even its defenders, but I loved it.
I don't understand how it's flown under the radar. Like, I really, with just a fully stacked cast and the story, because it's only like an hour and a half long, and there is so much that happens in it. There's the main plot, and then there's several subplots, but everything feeds into the main plot, right? And there's never a sense that things are happening too quickly, or that anything is rushed. And everything by the end, I mean, it's not like we get a neat ending, but all of those little Easter eggs that they've laid throughout the film, everything comes back in the end. There's nothing that's left dangling. And so, to pack that much into such a short amount of time, I mean, between just really the production from top to bottom, I feel like it's just one of the best movies, really. And that's why it's in my Keanu top 5, because people are like, how do you not have The Matrix in your top 5? How is that the film that's there? And I'm like, have you seen it? And of course they inevitably have not seen it. And I'm like, well, go and watch it, and then let's talk about it afterward, because The Matrix is an obvious choice. Like, The Matrix, like, there's certain Keanu films that I don't feel like I'm not going to take room in my top 5, because we've already established that those are brilliant movies.
They're in the canon already.
They're there, and I do have one in my top 5, which is Point Break, just because I love that movie so much, and I can watch that movie on a loop and never get tired of it. So that's in my top 5, because also you have to have one, like, usual one, right? At least in your top 5. So that's my one in my top 5. But, like, my other ones are, my number one Keanu film is My Own Private Idaho. And then my second favorite is Man of Tai Chi, which is Keanu's directorial debut. I don't know if you've seen that one, but that's another heavily underrated film. Okay. Oh my God,
I need to. So that's on my list. I need to watch.
It's so good. He plays a serial killer in that one, like a dead-eyed psychopath. Yeah, he is terrifying. Like, if you think he's terrifying in The Gift, he takes that to the next level in Man of Tai Chi. Oh my God, he scares me so much. I love it. And he directed it, and it has amazing fight scenes. Like, again, the fight choreography is extraordinary. It's so good. So that's my second favorite Keanu movie. And then my third is The Gift. Fourth is Point Break, and then fifth is 47 Ronin. So there's definitely there's a through line with all of these. I think, like, with where it comes to, like, supernatural elements, the action choreography in all of them, with the exception of My Own Private Idaho, which is a kind of a road trip drama. Indie drama. I don't know if you've seen that one, but that's
another one that's, like, really, really high up on my list.
Yeah, that movie is also just, it's so beautiful and has aged in a really interesting way. But, like, all the other 4, I think when you put them all together and you see The Gift is in that list, and if you've seen them all, it's like, oh, okay, like, I get her vibe. Like, that's because there is a vibe. There is a vibe right there with those 4 films, and it's funny that, like, that the connection to Point Break and The Gift, like, it's not there, because both films have these themes about violence against women and these kind of hero characters who manipulate the leading lady. Because we have Johnny Utah in Point Break doing the same thing to Tyler that Greg Kinnear does to Kate Blanchett's character in the film, and really fools her because they're both very smart women and they're both very perceptive, and somehow they get charmed, and it leads to disastrous consequences and near death for both of them, right? So like it's kind of interesting that The Gift is this movie that just kind of skated by everybody when it has so many of the themes that are in Keanu's really popular and well-known films, and yet somehow this one just escaped attention. So yeah,
Yeah,
makes me
yeah,
sad. It makes me
it's a
really
bummer.
sad.
Yeah, it's a bummer, and like
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like Keanu, like this is in the period where Keanu kind of gets clowned on it, and he's like
Mm,
I remember I was reading one review and they were like, oh, saying like Sam Raimi got a performance out of him that like sounds like he's reading the his lines off the back of a box of cereal or something insane like that. Like it's just so. I feel like at the
yeah.
time, like especially post Matrix, he was like this meme and joke, like, and he's still very meme today, but it was more like a people were always just like, oh, he's this guy who can't really act and stuff, and blah, like that's
Mhm.
the was the go-to line back then, and he'd
Yeah.
obviously been like an action star, and he had his comedic chops with like Bill and Ted, and he had indie success and stuff with My Own Private Idaho, but really he was like blowing up because of The Matrix right around this time. And I remember
Yeah.
I was before I switched to English, I was a theater major for a little while, and I remember being in a theater class. This would have been like 2007, 2008. And
Mhm.
the theater teacher was like, let's have a discussion about why Keanu Reeves is popular, because he's obviously not a good actor. Like the
Oh,
teacher initiated this discussion, and it was insane because just flash forward like 5 years after that, 6 years after that, 10 years after that, and now it's like people are like, oh no, we were wrong about Keanu. We disrespected him. We didn't understand what made him so great. And like you bring up in your book that beyond the or between two ferns bit where like Galifianakis is kind of like hitting him with all the like, oh haha, like you're not like a good actor, and he's like, am I?
yeah.
Oh, I'm pretending to be interested in this interview. Am I acting good? Like, and
Yeah. Yeah.
he's kind of
Yeah.
doing the sad Keanu thing. And obviously he's
Yeah.
had this like really incredible but difficult life at some point, and people are now starting to realize like how good of an actor he is, especially when he's utilized right.
Yeah.
I think like the
Mhm.
Wick movies are a big part of that because
Yeah.
they really hit on all of his strengths and none of his weaknesses.
Yeah.
Like they're like those Wick
Yeah.
movies are like tailor made for him to the point where I didn't even realize that I know like a lot of actors will rewrite their dialogue. They will bring in their own guys to punch stuff up to make it sound more like their kind of thing. But he was like
Mhm.
rewriting John Wick movies. He was like rewriting the Bowery Kings lines and stuff like that. He's like actually
Yeah.
like involved and so immersed in movie making. I
Yeah.
talked about the stunts, but even in a scripting level. So
Yeah.
in that a wider arc of Keanu going from at this time being kind of the butt of the joke to where he is now, where like you're like watching the episode of Severance and you're like, is that building Keanu Reeves? This is amazing. And people just love him. Like you say in your book, everyone loves Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
And I don't that was not the case when this movie came out. He was just like dumb action guy. And now it's like he's so beloved. I
Yeah.
would love to hear your thoughts about that kind of arc that he went on.
It's so interesting. I mean, I feel like a lot of social media and the internet had plays a big part
Mhm.
in that, because he was the butt of the joke for such a long time, and because there was no way to really like to speak back to that. And so critics had decided that he's not a good actor. And so they were looking at every single one of his performances through the lens of Bill and Ted, which makes really no sense because that was only one. He was making mostly dramas and indie movies, and comedies were not even like were not even really a big thing that he was doing. He was doing like these romance dramas. Like, so the fact that they latched on to this idea of him as Bill and Ted, as Ted Theodore Logan, and that became the defining factor, I feel like that was a really big thing that then shaped public perception of him as a bad actor. Because, if you're reading all the time that, like, oh, this guy's no good, then you're going into a movie having read it in some magazine that, yeah, he's a bad actor. Then you're going to go in already thinking like, oh, he's a bad actor. And then assuming that you're seeing Bill and Ted when you're not, when that's not even what close to what he's offering, right? Or if
Right,
there's
right.
even a hint, if there's even a hint of it, like a joke of it, then suddenly it's like, oh, the whole performance gets judged on that. And so I feel like there was a point where critics just didn't like him, and I don't know exactly what that was about, but I somehow feel like the more that he leaned into his ethnic ambiguity, that the less that critics liked him. They were fine with him when he was like white passing, but then the more that he became associated with his Asian and his indigenous sides, or that he was playing roles where his background was more, where it could be mixed, right? And it changes the story. Once he started being in those positions, the critics suddenly just didn't know what to do with him. Like, what do we do with an Asian romantic lead, with an indigenous romantic lead, right? It only works if he's white. So there was this weird, and again, it just this kind of weird racist tension that was happening, because back at that time, most of the film critics were all white men.
Yeah.
And there were a few white women thrown in there. And it was interesting when you look back that a lot of the white women were the ones who were like, wait a minute, like, Janet Maslin wrote
Mhm.
about Point Break, about his performance in Point Break, and she was like, this is one of the most nuanced performances I've seen this year. And to read that now, I'm like, yeah, of course it is. That movie is brilliant. He's brilliant in it. But you read what all the other men wrote, and they're like, this guy is dumb as a brick. And it's like, what movie did you watch
Yeah.
exactly? Because he's what? Like, what is even happening here? Like, it feels like being gaslighted.
Mhm.
And and so I feel like once the internet kind of gave people more of a platform to be able to speak back and actually have their own opinions about things, and talk to each other, we kind of started, I think people started to realize, like, wait a minute, like there's other things going on, and like, and here's a space we can make for ourselves where we can talk about how he is a great actor. So, like, this website Woe Is Not Me popped up, and it's like this Keanu archive, and like they also believe that he's a really good actor, and they've always believed that. And so that was one of the reasons they started that archive, was because it's like, first off, like, his work, we need to have an archive of all these things, that these magazines, because we've got to digitize everything, because not everything, in that transition from digital, from paper to digital, right? We don't want to lose all these articles about Keanu and his history. So there was all of that. And then also, like, the reason they did it was because they love Keanu as a performer, not as a person, as a performer. And so, so then all of a sudden we had all these kind of grassroots efforts to, like, to prop up Keanu's work for what it is, and to see it in a different light, and to counter that narrative, right? And then, Keanu went through tragedies at
Yeah.
right when social media was starting. So, the baby, losing the baby, and then losing his partner. And so that, that happened in the media, right? Like, that happened in a time
Mhm.
when it's like, it wasn't something that we just read in the newspaper. It was something that was like online. And then it was, the repercussions of that were there. And sad Keanu meme, that happened. That was shortly
Mhm.
after that, right? And so it's like, we had a context for why, and he says that he was just eating the sandwich and he was very focused, but like, we know that he was going through tragedies in that time in his life, and it was a really, really difficult time in his life, and he was working constantly, because just to avoid, I mean, really, because that's what a lot of us do when we're in the middle of something, and so you throw yourself into something else. And so I think the awareness of him as a human being, suddenly that's when the awareness came through, that, like, oh my gosh, we've been so mean to this guy, and look what he's been going through, and he's still nice. Like, wow, like, that's pretty cool. And so then we had the switch, because we could see it happen in almost in real time, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it became like, we're punching down now. Like, we're punching down on this guy. Why have we been doing this? And what's been motivating it? Because I mean, in my book, I one of the reasons I say is really that there's kind of some racial component to this. And
Mhm.
but I feel like it was so easy to pick on him, and then suddenly it was like all these good deeds that he's doing, all that stuff started to be more, easily accessible to people,
Mhm.
because before the internet, we didn't know that he would, like, on his birthday, and when he was living in New York, have a cake and just kind of walk around. And if someone recognized him, he'd be like, "Oh, it's my birthday. Have a piece of cake." That was a thing that he did
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
while. It was so cute. And he used to ride the subway, and like people would talk to him, and so all these things that would happen like before social media, all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, he's just such a nice guy.
Mhm.
Nobody knew that he was just this nice guy. And so, yeah, so I feel like there's part of that social media actually was one of the things that was like his part of his redemption arc, kind of brought that into focus more, and also just gave more of a platform for us to find out all these things that he does on a daily basis that are just very kind things that he doesn't make a big deal out of, right? Like Dolly Parton does, she's the same. Like she's constantly
Yeah.
doing lovely things for people, and she's not trying to advertise it, but because of social media, these things all get out now. And so, yeah, so I feel like there's that moment in like somewhere around 2003, 2004-ish, where it was like, wow, we're not going to be mean to Keanu anymore. And somewhere in there was the switch that like, oh wait, maybe he's actually not, as some people got this memo that like, oh, maybe he's not so bad an actor, maybe he's actually a good actor. But then there's still the other people who are like, no, I like him as a person and not as an actor.
Right.
You can't win everything. I mean, I
Yeah.
tried with this book. Like this book was really my response to those people who are like, I like him as a person, not as an actor.
Mhm.
And I'm like, this book is for them. My book is for them to be like, no, here's all the ways he is an amazing actor. Please go back and watch these films again, thinking about some of these things I'm mentioning here, because he's brilliant. He is an extraordinary performer. And The Gift is one of these examples of, wow, the number of ways that he broke every expectation for the kind of film that you would do after you just made a blockbuster.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
almost overnight turned into the action star, right? Like one
Mhm.
of the definitive action stars. Like now you're just like this 30 something guy, and you're like up there with Tom Cruise, who's been doing this for years, right? Like all of a
Yeah.
sudden. And then you go and make this little indie Southern Gothic horror film, right? Like who does that?
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
When your investors, customers, and workers demand more from your business, make it happen with SAP. The AI-powered capabilities of SAP can help you streamline costs, connect with new suppliers, and manage payroll, even when your business is being pulled in different directions. To deliver a quality product at a fair price while paying your people what they're worth too, so your business can stay unfazed. Learn more at sap.com/uncertainty.
Yeah,
Who
it's
does
crazy
that?
because
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's like so many films that come out in the wake of the Matrix, like that are like really riffing on it, in one way or
Yeah.
another. And he goes a completely different direction.
Yeah.
But to speak on
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
revival, when I was reading your book, something really clicked for me is that I think that the way like nostalgia works for people, and I talked about this a little bit in
Mm.
my episode a little bit ago on Flash Gordon, talking about how that movie has really been reclaimed. That movie was just seen as a joke for so long, in the same way that I think Keanu Reeves, by a lot of people, his career was seen as like a joke. And then over the years, people like Seth MacFarlane are like, wow, this is like one of my favorite movies, and he puts it into TED. And like you said, there's so many examples of Keanu as a person, but also Keanu's performances and just Keanu movies that get referenced in later stuff. Obviously, one of the first ones that really leans into that is Hot Fuzz. Edgar Wright obviously is a fan of all those kind of like 90s action movies, and there's so
Yeah.
much Point Break in Hot Fuzz, but then you get
Oh,
like
yeah.
a million, and there's like the surface level Matrix things where it's like for like I think like 10 years there was just like all the bullet time memes, but there's also just like stuff that really goes a lot more into it. Like you talk about it just can't coming out like right after John Wick, but the film Keanu, which is, not really
Mhm.
about him, but he is heavily, heavily referenced in it, and eventually
Oh,
he
yeah.
did agree to do a cameo in that. So obviously,
Yeah.
Key and Peele are like watching like The Matrix, they're big fans of it. So these people who
Yeah.
are watching his movies in their early career are becoming fans of his, then they become people who are making movies, and they have this love for Keanu that they put into the movies, and then everyone else is seeing it like, oh yeah, Point Break, he was pretty cool in that. I would also fire my
Yeah.
gun in the air and yell, "Ah!" when my best friend runs away. Like it makes it so much more relatable, and you
Yeah.
really can be like, okay, like he is his career is getting reclaimed in a major way, I think, because of all of those films. And you have so many good examples in your book of that.
Thank you. Yeah. And because he has such an exceptional catalog of movies. I mean, when I was writing, there were only 78. So now we're up to like, I've already lost count. I think we're like at 83 now.
Okay.
With Wick is Pain. So, the book is already how it just came out and it's already so out of date. But, yeah, but the man is kind of a machine. Like he works. He's been so prolific, and so there have been so many opportunities for people to go back and look at what he's done, and the work is there. Like there are very few films that he's been in where the performance is not like fully up to par, and there's always been specific reasons with the production for why that happened. Like for example, The Watcher. That was the movie that he was basically he was coerced into making. His ex-friend had like forged his signature on the contract. And then, and then instead of going into a whole litigation thing, he just decided like, you know what, I'm going to make the movie, but like, I'm not going to be there. And it's a terrible movie. I mean, everyone phoned that performance in because they all knew that he didn't want to be there. Like he didn't agree to be in that movie. So what would you do, right? So it's not a good movie, and he even admits in interviews like that's my worst film. Like I was not supposed to be there, I didn't want to be there, and so I did not try. I did what I needed to do to get out of it and get out as quickly as possible. And then there's another film that got really bogged down in the studio system called Exposed, and it was supposed to be a whole different story. And once Keanu got involved, the script got out of hand, and it turned into this whole police procedural. And that's another one where it's like it's not what it was supposed to be, and you can tell that something is off with it. It's odd. So so there's a couple examples in his movies where like things were not going well, and he's not doing great on screen because like none of that is supposed to be how it was. But in terms of like the rest of the like 77 films, like at least the ones that were discussed in my book, all the rest of those, like that's a lot of, to use the parlance of our times, like that's a lot of content, right? Like, like he has put out so much, and there is a lot to study in those performances, and especially like his indie films. He makes some really, really interesting choices. And I think one of my favorite things that I learned about him when I was researching my book is that he apparently has at any given time a stack of like 100 scripts on his desk. And he reads them all. Yeah, apparently he reads them all. So his agent, he's not getting cherry picked scripts. Like it's not like, oh, we think, here's his agent being like, oh, we think this is good for your next movie. No. He gets all of them. So he has this stack that and apparently it just stays with this big stack because he finishes one, and if he likes it, then it goes into the maybe pile. If he doesn't like it, it just goes away, right? And then another script comes and replaces it. And so he's just constantly, he reads everything. And then he chooses which movies he's going to be in. And when you think about like his career, for example, after The Matrix, since then, having these stacks of scripts on his desk, then think about all these movies that he's been in, and consider Keanu deciding he's going to make that film, right? And to me, when you watch, especially if you're going to watch those films for the first time, like I think that's a really interesting game to play with yourself. Hey, like Keanu chose this out of 100 scripts that were on his desk. What is this about this role that what is he showing me here? Why did he want to be in this? What was it about this character? What was it about this story? Why is he here? And you see really beautiful things come from that. So even the really terrifying roles that he's taken on, because there's a lot of darkness in his catalog as well, he chose those by hand himself. And I think there's something really beautiful about that, the creative choices that he's made, and trying to puzzle out what was it that drew him to this. And so, in my book, I proposed a whole theory and broken things down into all these different themes. And one day, if I ever get to interview him, that's one of the things I really want to ask is like, hey, like here's how I broke down your work. I'm curious, like when you were making all these films that have these similar themes, like what was your thought process? Like what drew you to make The Neon Demon? What drew you to make To the Bone? Like two completely different, you would never imagine that the same actor would be in those two films, really. I would imagine that, have you seen The Neon Demon?
I haven't. I love
Okay.
Drive, so I've been wanting to watch it for a while, and I love it's Elle Fanning in there,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Okay, I'm a
Yes,
huge
it
fan of
is.
hers. So
Oh
it's been
my goodness.
another one. I keep saying this, I know, but it's another one that's on my to watch list.
It's so rough. So Keanu in that film plays a pedophile motel owner
Okay.
who is preying on these teenage girls, these runaways who are coming to LA to try and be famous. And, so there's like he's involved with the sexual assault, like you see it on screen. Oh my God. I threw up. Like I literally, the first time I saw it, nobody warned me. And
Yeah.
I didn't make it to the bathroom in time. I threw up. Like I had, oh my God, oh my God, it physically hurts me thinking about that film. And I'm like, what is Keanu doing in this? Like,
Mhm.
oh my God, how is this my Keanu? How is this our Keanu playing that role?
Yeah.
Like so upset, but like he go all in, man. He goes all in on this role. And I'm like, dude, like to have the opportunity to play that level of evil, like, yeah, okay, cool. I guess like if I was a performer and I was given a script like that, I'd be like, fuck, yeah, let's go. Like, oh, I'm sorry, am I allowed
No, no,
to
we can say as many fucks as we want on this show. We got that little E out there on Apple.
I forgot to ask earlier. But yeah,
You're
but
good.
seriously, like, because that's what I imagine like Keanu seeing that script and being like, "Oh my God, I get to do what on screen?" Like, wow, like oh my God, because I'm not going to spoil it for you because it's so the visuals are just I mean, wow. It's so beautifully shot that like it's
Yeah.
a very God, it's such a disturbing movie. But like, Keanu chose that role
Yeah, yeah.
out of 100 other roles he could have chosen. And I'm like, wow, okay. So instead of being upset, like, let's think, what is it that's like his creative process is fascinating. And that's really
Mhm.
something that I was trying to dive into as I wrote the book was like trying to figure out what are the threads here, what's this tapestry that he's weaving and how is he picking these things and like what are the patterns that I'm noticing. And he loves the dark stuff. Like,
Yeah.
wow, he does, but he also loves the really funny, silly stuff. I just don't know any other actor, like maybe except Pedro Pascal. I feel like he's
Mm.
maybe a someone who's kind of in the same vein as Keanu. Plus, with he's also got this lovely persona, and his support of his transistor is so
Mhm.
so
Yeah, yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's in my eyes kind of growing in like the Keanu
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
pantheon. I feel
They
like
have,
there's
yeah, the same vibes. I see that now. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And also with the roles that Pedro Pascal takes, like he's also really drawn to some dark stuff
Mhm.
and he's finding this interesting balance between like this really dark stuff and really light stuff and then everything in between. And you just don't see that kind of range with a lot of actors. Like I
Mm.
feel they're all, like people like Tom Cruise, so talented, but like he's just now chosen this one thing and that's all he does, right? Like
Yeah.
same with Dwayne the Rock Johnson, like so talented, but like he's just chosen this one kind of role he's gonna play and
Yeah,
like
which is why
over and
I'm
over and
really
over and over again.
surprised he's going to be in that like A24 biopic. I was like, this is a very different vein for Dwayne Johnson, you know?
Yeah, I'm interested to see what he does. And another actor who I feel like kind of could be part of the Keanu pantheon is Dave Bautista.
Oh,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that guy, he is wow, he also makes some really interesting creative choices.
Mhm.
And again, I don't know how many different things are getting shown. So knowing that Keanu sees everything and then chooses these are the projects that he chooses, I just love knowing that about him now because it changes the way that I engage with his work, knowing that was what he picked out of 100 things. And
Yeah.
so there is something so special there. There was someone that he wanted to work with. There was some theme that brought him to that project. And so I'm curious to hear like how many scripts does Pedro Pascal see, right? Like Dave Bautista, like how many is he seeing? And then he's choosing these things from them. So this is now a new question that I ask of all the creative people. Like how many projects are they offered? How many projects do they review
Yeah.
before they choose what they're doing? Because knowing that Keanu does so much legwork to pick his projects, again, it elevates everything that he does for me because it's not an accident he's in any of those things, like at
Yeah.
all. He
Yeah.
is so carefully curating his films. So that level of attention to his career is really singular, I feel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring up the parallels to Tom Cruise because like on a surface level it's like they're two of like kind of like the last movie stars, like they're both big action guys who have these big action franchises, Mission Impossible
Hmm.
and John Wick, they're very known for
Yeah.
like pushing the boundaries with stunts and stuff. And Cruise early in his career, he would take risks and stuff. Like he would be in Magnolia or he would
Yeah.
be in like Eyes Wide Shut. And I think, when he didn't get the recognition that he wanted, when people started finding out things about his personal life that were not great, all the stuff like involved in like all the Scientology stuff, like people were like, well, and then he just was like, okay, I'm gonna be action movies guy, Whereas Keanu was like, even though I know like he's gonna maybe be in a Naruto movie and stuff, but he's never gonna push the boundaries. I feel like where like Reeves would do with like a Neon Demon, like you were saying, with something like this, where I was like going to this, I was like, I cannot believe that he's playing a wife beater. Like that is such a
No.
different vibe that I'm used to. And yeah, I'm just like, that's really interesting that he
Yeah.
would take something like this on and he would choose to
Yeah.
be, like you said, he's coming off the Matrix. He has his choice of probably whatever, like, because the way this movie comes out, it's not the next thing that comes out of the Matrix, but it's probably the first thing he shot after the Matrix was really hitting,
Yep.
if you look at the timelines. And he's
Exactly.
like, not only is it like not an action movie that's completely different, he's also like playing a pretty supporting role. He's like, this is like the only time I'm like, Keanu Reeves would ever be billed under Giovanni Ribisi, I feel like, in a movie. Like, no disrespect to Giovanni, great actor, but like Keanu
Yeah.
Reeves, But so like that kind of speaks to that, like this movie, he's great in it, but it's also a much bigger movie than him. And because like this is like very much a Cate Blanchett gothic horror with Sam Raimi. And obviously we talked a ton about Keanu and his how great he is in this movie. Is there some other stuff in the movie that like with Kate or with Sam Raimi's direction, with the whole gothic horror, the gothic, not horror, but the gothic kind of like a thriller of it that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, gosh. Kate Blanchett in this film is just, she's one of my favorite characters of all time in this movie.
Mm,
Like, I think it's, again, one of her most underrated performances as well, really. Like,
yeah.
we've seen Hilary Swank, we've seen her do what she does in this film and a couple other ones. But what Kate Blanchett does in this movie is so, like, I honestly just occasionally would just forget that I'm watching a movie. Like, this is not,
Mhm.
I'm not actually there with them right now. This is a film. I'm,
Yeah.
because her performance is so engrossing. And I'm in awe of her in this film.
Mhm.
I feel like she was at the top of her game. And the fact that she didn't get any of the flowers for it at
Yeah.
all, I really, just it really bums me out. But I also have to say again, Greg Kinnear, I did not see that ending coming. And I remember the first time I watched it just being I had to pause it for a second because I was like, "What the fuck just happened? Like, how did I miss it? Like, how?" And then when you go back and watch it again, you'll start to see it's so subtle. His
Yeah.
performance is so subtle. And that's why I've watched that movie 100 times because every time I watch it, I notice something new in their performances. Every single one of them. Giovanni Ribisi's character is another one where the layers, like you can start to see his thought processes. Like their acting is so visible on their faces. And that silent technique is the thing that Keanu, I feel like, is really it's one of his signature moves. And for once in The Gift, like he's talking a lot.
Yeah.
So it's everyone else is doing all of this silent technique with their faces. And I swear, like, this is one of those movies where I rewatch it, but I actually watch it because I'm like, you see so much happening on their faces. And so, like, there's other films, like when I watch Point Break a million times, like, I'm not necessarily like sitting and focusing on it, I'm like, maybe I'm doing folding my laundry, I'm doing other things, and it's like on in the background, the music is so good. Like, that I'm doing the dialogue along with it. But like when I watch The Gift, I'm watching The Gift. I'm
Mm,
not on my phone. I'm not taking notes. I am focused because I'm like, what am I going to notice this time that I didn't notice the other 100 times that I've seen this movie? Because there's always something. And so, yeah, I highly recommend for folks checking this movie out to watch it more than once because really, like, you will start to see things. And I feel like that's another reason why I love it so much because the more that you've just scratched the surface of the performances. Like the more that you watch it and the more that you see how they have bodied these characters. there is not a moment in that movie where anybody is out of character. Sometimes, it happens. It happens in films, like, people, just like someone who's in the background, someone around, there's something that draws you out of the story. There's not a moment in this film where that happens. And, like, that's pretty special too. I feel like that's another reason I've watched it so much, because it it's just perfect in a way. Like, it's really one of these rare films that I feel has just nailed it on all of the levels. And yeah, and then just the fact that, like, God, you have Sam Raimi. Like, this is
Yeah.
directed by Sam Raimi. Like, how
Mhm.
have the Sam Raimi stands not done a
Right.
revival of it? That
Yeah.
to it just feels like an oversight. It feels like somehow that there's this little invisibility cloak around it, and people are just not noticing it because it again, criminally underrated. Not just underrated, criminally so.
Yes. Yeah, and I agree with all that, and yeah, I like I said, huge Kate Blanchett fan. So
Yeah.
obviously this is, after she gets like all of that praise for Elizabeth,
Mm,
Lord of the Rings is about to come out, so she's obviously shot that. So like she's really kind of like having a big. Those are kind of, I feel like, two of the defining moments with her starting her career, is her getting that Academy Award recognition for Elizabeth, and then getting her blockbuster recognition for Lord of the Rings, which are obviously very different roles. She's an incredibly talented,
yeah,
versatile actress, and this is very
yeah,
different from either of those. She's playing like this person who is just kind of gaslit and not believed throughout the whole movie, and just like you said, with all the stuff about people of non-white people being kind of like looked down on or not believed in the South. And I think you see a lot of that with her being just a single mother, a single mother who's
yeah,
like a fortune teller, and they're like, even people who are like
yeah.
quote unquote good, helpful people like J.K. Simmons is just like, I don't believe any of this shit, like he's just like
Mhm.
they're
Yeah,
very dismissive of her. And
yeah,
the way she's like, yeah, my husband is dead. I'm out here trying to like help other battered women and people who are like Giovanna Ribisi, who has obviously been abused, and she's
yeah,
like doing her best for him. But she's just so overwhelmed by the crushing way of the world, and she's going out her way to like help this person who was honestly kind of shitty to her and was not a good person, but she's like trying to find justice for this murdered woman, and she's out here like while trying to support her kids any way she can, and she's lived through so much tragedy. Like her performance is so phenomenal because you believe it, and then
yeah,
she's like, then she's getting stalked, and threats are made against her and her children. She's like doing her best to protect them, but like she's going with this huge threatening man. She goes to the cops, and the cops are basically like, hey, fuck you, like the cops are not going to help you, which like
yeah.
that's real, like especially in
Right?
this, like
Mhm.
it's real today in like America, but it's
Yeah,
also very real in the South in like the early aughts.
yep.
Cops are not gonna there to protect you. So I think that's a phenomenal performance. Like you say, the Raiminess of this, like how has this not been? Because Raimi fans, they love their deep cuts, right? So I'm just like,
Yeah, dude.
when are you guys gonna like start championing this one? Because I talk a lot about how much I love when you take one kind of film, one genre, and then you put other genre elements onto it. Like a movie that I covered
Yes.
way back in the day was As Above, So Below, which is like
Oh,
an Indiana
yes.
Jones style
Mhm.
adventure movie, but it's also like a found footage horror
Found
film, right?
footage.
Right?
Yes, that's one of
So
my
good.
favorites. I love it. Yeah.
Mhm. And this one, as I alluded to earlier, is a kind of by the numbers, like it's a Southern murder mystery, like it's like
Right.
where you could have it. It's
Yeah.
it's so John Grisham, or even like you could see like this being like, if you take out the supernatural stuff, this could be a Knives Out movie. Honestly, like it could be like you
Ooh,
could see
mhm.
Daniel Craig just being like, "Well, I'm here to solve the murder of Katie Holmes," like. But then you put that layer of the supernatural
Yep.
Sam Raimi, like, and it's very much in his style too, where there's like the quick
Yeah.
zooms and like here's something like a
Yes.
spooky thing that will just like kind of like, and it'll be like a close up and somebody's eyes will like pop wide open like that. I feel like,
Yeah.
other than Bruce Campbell, I think this has like all of the hallmarks of the Sam
Yeah.
Raimi movie, and
It
because
does.
when you're combining these genres, you can do it just to do it, right? You can be like, hey, this is something that I think is an interesting genre, this is an interesting genre, and smash them together and it won't work. But when you do it in a thoughtful way that is unexpected, but it really works, like I think with this movie really works, you're taking what is great about both of these genres and what they address. Like, okay, a lot of these Southern movies are about like people who are often look down upon, like these Southern murder movies are taking movies that are like, this person is
Yeah.
often overlooked in this society, how do we address that? And you're taking
Yeah.
something like, here's a movie about a fortune teller who sees dead people, she's clairvoyant, this is very spooky. They don't seem like they should fit, but it's such a perfect marriage.
It really is, and he just so leans into that Southern Gothic feel with this film, and it's really I just try to understand why it's still not getting the love that it deserves, because it's aged really well.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. It has aged really well because, again, he used practical special effects, so we don't have any of this CGI nonsense that makes things that has made a lot of movies not age well.
Yeah,
Like,
some of those early 2000
so
movies, like Mummy Returns, rough.
seriously, really, they're not doing well, and they have to
Mhm.
fully remaster them because those digital effects are just not they're not doing well over time.
Mhm.
But like Sam Raimi is one of the masters of the practical effect, right? So,
Mhm.
he uses all of that stuff. And so, I feel like that has also just added to the artistry of the film and how well it has stood up over time. And it's just bizarre to me. I really try to figure out why that is a movie that has escaped, so it should have had so much critical attention as well, because really the acting in it, but then it's a horror movie, right? It's a
Yeah.
so it has enough of those elements that then it's not going to get taken seriously by awards bodies. And it's directed by Sam Raimi, so like then that's also gonna make sure that it's not getting taken seriously by awards bodies, right? Because like, oh, it's the guy from Evil Dead. Well,
Right.
I mean, so there's, again, I feel like there's a lot of bias against horror genre, but then where are all the
Mhm.
horror fans with this film? Because this is such a it's like it's like a secret Sam Raimi movie, right? It's like
Yeah.
discovering that your favorite director made this like quirky Southern Gothic thriller slash drama. It's everything, right?
Mhm.
It's part family drama, it's part horror movie, it's part courtroom proceeding, like legal procedural. Like it's all of these elements, and it's this director who's like known for this whole other genres, right? And how does that not make this kind of like the gem in the collection instead of the like ignored one? Like it's like the moonstone or the opal, like over there, like nobody cares about it, even though it's more valuable than and it's more rare than all the rest of them, right? Like all these other glittering jewels, and you've got this opal over there, and like that's the really valuable one, but no one wants to pay attention to it because everything else over here is so sparkly. I don't know.
No, I completely agree. Because like this movie, there's some times when Sam Raimi has made a movie that's like not really a Sam Raimi movie. Like he's been like, okay, I'll make Oz the Great and Powerful, or I'll make For the Love of the Game. Like those movies,
Oh,
they feel like, okay, like this is him kind of maybe doing this for stepping in as a favor, or like just doing this as a gig, because he is like a working director. But this so much feels like his movie. Like this
it
100%
does.
is his thing.
It really does, and I love that all of the people who were like all the stars, they all treated it as seriously as it is, right? Because you
Hmm.
could have really had someone coming in with a really hokey accent, or there could
Right.
have been that Knives Out, that almost that satire aspect coming in, or even a dark comedy aspect coming in, because we also know that
Hmm.
Sam Raimi is really big on dark comedies. So like
Yeah.
there could have been a lot more of that, like just with one character a little bit off could have changed the whole,
Mhm.
could have changed the whole vibe of the thing. And it's serious. It's a serious film throughout. And but I also that also feels very intentional. Like it feels like Sam Raimi was like, I just want to make one serious horror movie. And
Yeah.
like like a horror drama. Like I just want it to be. I
Mm.
feel like it. I wonder how inspired he was by Eve's Bayou, and that's always been something that
Mhm.
I've been curious about with him, like, because there's a lot of parallels between that film. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's not technically it's not technically a horror movie, but it's over the years has been kind of reclassified as black horror.
Yeah.
And it's directed by Cassie Lemons, and it's an all black cast, and it takes place in Mississippi, I want to say, or it could actually even be Louisiana. I'm not sure, but there's all of these elements of the supernatural that are happening in this very sweeping family drama in the South, taking place in the '60s, and it's a beautiful film, and I feel like there's a lot in common with The Gift, and so I've Googled and he's never really mentioned anything about it, so
Okay.
I don't know. So again, if I like ever have a chance to chat with him, I'm gonna be like, "Hey, dude, like, quick question about The Gift, like,
Yeah, yeah,
like, what's your stance on Eve's Bayou? Like, was
yeah,
that
yeah.
part of your process? Because like the parallels are there, and I feel like it's a good double feature actually to either watch one or the other. It doesn't matter which order you
Hmm.
watch them in. I feel like they each contribute to each other. But yeah, it's just
Yeah,
it's wild to me that this movie doesn't. And it's the 25th anniversary, and I've been waiting to see like interviews with Sam Raimi and with all the cast because again, the cast is stacked. Like,
yeah.
why is
It really is.
nobody talking about this?
Yeah, no,
Nobody,
absolutely. Yeah.
nobody, nobody
Well,
cares.
it's a shame too. I'm glad. That's why I love doing this show is because I want
Yeah,
to shine a light on these movies that otherwise
yeah,
would not get talked about as much. But yeah, so
yeah.
with that said, is there any last thoughts you want to leave about the Gift or Keanu's performance in it?
Oh wow. Oh, that's such a big question. Yeah, I guess trigger warnings for people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
That's fair.
it is very upsetting. And I think for folks who really don't like Keanu as an actor, I think that this is a kind of movie of his that they need to watch because he is
Hmm.
acting in this
Yeah,
film. Like, he's brutal and he's so violent and he's so gross. His character is so just he's
yeah,
nasty. Like, the things he says and the way he says things is just like, oh, like, why is that coming out of
yeah.
Keanu's beautiful mouth? Like, no,
Dude, I did not need
like,
to. See, I was like,
ah,
I just heard Keanu Reeves say the N word. That's something I
I
never thought I would
know.
experience.
Like,
Wild.
why? Like, oh my God, like, why is this happening to us? Like,
Yeah,
and I mean, he's acting, like,
yeah.
he is acting and he's acting really well. It's like enough to make you super uncomfortable. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, so I kind of like for people who I think really for people who think that Keanu is not a good actor, this is a film this is probably why this is in one of my top five too. Just like
Hmm.
he is so not anything, any way you've ever seen him before, and he's completely not himself. And if you want to make the case that he's a bad actor, I'm like, just watch this film and please, like, let's talk about it afterward because how could you say that? Because he's very convincing. He's too convincing, honestly,
Yeah,
as this domestic abuser. And so which is what makes it one of my favorite performances of his.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
defies all expectations,
yeah.
and he's brilliant. It's a brilliant performance among
Mhm.
so many other brilliant performances. I mean, everyone in this film.
Yeah.
Oh God, to have been on that set, like, I really, wow,
Yeah,
yeah, would have been
yeah,
amazing to
yeah.
see all of them in action.
Absolutely, and I think the scene that really, because he's obviously just being like a despicable, horrible person throughout the film. But the scene that like stuck out the most for me in terms of his acting is when it becomes a courtroom drama and he's like on the stand and he has this whole Pete where he's just like, yeah, like I admit, like I hit these women, I've done all these
Mhm.
terrible things, like I'm not a good husband, I'm not a good Chris, and like you can like he's
Yeah,
really acting in there because you can tell like
yeah,
this is a character who is a bad person who is coming to
yeah,
grips with the fact that he is a terrible person and is
yeah,
going to be punished for it, not because of anything he did, but because basically the life that he's lived is catching up with him, and now he's being essentially set up. But the consequences are coming from it. He's
yeah,
just coming to grips with like I am not good, and he still has that horrible emotional outburst out of that. But just him on the
yeah,
stand, and it's so in contrast with everything else he's been doing with the movie, but it still feels in
yeah,
line with this character. So I thought
yeah.
that was really incredible. And my last question here to wrap up, talking about his performance in this. You mentioned your five favorite Keanu movies, but do you
Yeah.
have a number one performance? Not necessarily of the movie, but just
Oh.
him in the movie. What's your favorite Keanu role?
Mm. I'm gonna say My Own Private Idaho.
Okay, all right, very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, I'm gonna say that because again, it's again a very he's playing this sociopathic, m manipulative, cold-hearted person. His character is honestly quite similar to, Donnie Barksdale in The Gift. Scott Favor in My Own Private Idaho, he's really just, gosh, he's so conniving, and the way that he ingratiates himself with all of these people. He's wealthy, and he ingratiates himself with all of these unhoused people, and he gives everyone the impression that, like, when he finally returns home to his mayor's, his dad is the mayor, and when he finally returns home to his mansion, he's gonna be, everyone's gonna be coming with him. All these poor sex workers who have been his street family are all going to come with him. But then he's doing these asides to the camera where he's like, I have never, none of these people are coming with me. Like,
Yeah.
and the way these switches that he makes, it foreshadows a lot of what he does in his career. And he got no flowers for that performance either. River Phoenix kind of gets all of the accolades for that movie. And Keanu's performance in it is, again, so powerful and nuanced and layered. And I see a lot of shades of that in The Gift, which is probably another reason why that's one of my favorite films of his. Because that the tenderness eventually does come out, but it comes out in these ways that are so unexpected,
Yeah.
And that plea that he makes for himself in The Gift on the stand, where he's like, yeah, I did all these bad things, but I'm not a killer. Like, he's admitting to all these terrible things that he's done to make the case that, like, yeah, but I would never go that far, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm the worst, but I'm not that worst. Right? And so it's like nobody ever asks him about these moments. And this is another thing that's, like, on my list of questions for Mr. Reeves, if I ever get a chance to interview him, is to be like, hey, like, where did you get this from? What were you pulling on to bring suddenly, in these most unexpected moments, this weird, like, vulnerability comes out, and you're like, huh, okay. And, like, people say you don't act.
This podcast is supported by FX's English Teacher. Last year's critically acclaimed series returns to follow Evan, Gwen, and Marky as they vie for their students' divided attention. See why Cosmopolitan called its premiere season a masterclass of comedy, while Glamour raved it's the year's funniest and most heartwarming new comedy series. FX's English Teacher returns September 25th on FX. All episodes streaming on Hulu.
Welcome to Only Murders in the Building,
the official podcast.
Join me, Michael Cyril Creighton, as we go behind the scenes with some of the amazing actors, writers, and crew from season 5.
The audience should never stop suspecting anything.
How can you not be funny crawling around on a coffin? No, that's true.
Catch Only Murders in the Building official podcast, now streaming wherever you get your podcasts. And watch Only Murders in the Building, streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Yeah, it's wild. So so if you haven't seen My Own Private Idaho, oh man, that movie is incredible. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's from 1991. Nice. It's from 1991, and it's a little bit like a time capsule. And his performance in it is extraordinary. So, and as it is in The Gift. So I see a lot of parallels between the two.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, and I'll throw out. I think mine is. I'm tempted to say Bill and Ted, a role that he played across multiple decades, and is so iconic for me because I think he's just like, it's just that lovable side of Keanu that just kind of like, whoa, dude, like it's so good. I love the bromance in that. I love that when he's like a girl dad in the latest one and stuff. Like it's so good.
Yeah.
And the respect that, like, you see the respect that he has for, like, the princesses, and he's like, oh, the women, like, it's so. But I think that I'm tempted to say that one, but I think I really have to. And this is a very basic answer, but I got to go with John Wick. I think that really gets every facet of all the things he does so well. Like, you have that tortured past, like, we talked about, like, does not shy away from playling people who are bad people. And John Wick, he's like, I was a bad guy. Like, I've done terrible things. And he's like, no remorse about, like, killing all these people. You still like, John Wick is still a likable person, but, like, he's still like, the only really good thing about me was my wife who died. She left me a dog. They killed my dog. So now I'm going to murder everyone. You're like, I get it, dude. Go off. But then he also has, like, that brings that really sensitive side, when, like, scene where he's just, like, holding the dog, like, oh my gosh, this is the reason that broke people's hearts. But then he's also just doing the, like, the badass Keanu at the same time, where he's doing all his stunts and he's like really pushing the boundaries and like, how can we do this in a more interesting way? And like, you know, the thing that like the reason the trailer popped and it's still, you know, so ingratiated with the character was just like, I'm thinking I'm back, you know, and and the way that, you know, spoilers for John Wick 4, but the way that character kind of like has that perfect ending, you know, like it's so good. I can't. That was when I was really like, this guy. He's always an actor that I liked more than most people, but then when I started watching the Wick movies, it was like, there's a special sauce that he just brings, and it's just all the ingredients are right in there for that one. So that's one of my that's my all-time favorite, I think.
I agree with you, and I think that's why I like to pick movies from early in his career, because he's always had that sauce. Like he has always had it. And pointing people to My Own Private Idaho, as a drama, there all of those elements, you can see where John Wick came from in his role as Scott Favor. Like you can, I feel like, looking at his early stuff, and plus his early stuff is so, again, criminally underrated. So, and his work and his performances in them are so, we don't talk about them enough. And so, so I think that's another reason I gravitate toward picking those films whenever people ask me questions about what my favorites are, because he's been doing this for 40 years, man. Like the man is, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. And he's been brilliant since the start. So that's one of the biggest cases that I make in my book, is that he's been thoughtful since the beginning and brilliant since the beginning. So and John Wick is really, it's the distillation. It's the distillation of all of these decades of brilliance, and it's just excited to see where he goes from here. I'm going to actually be seeing him on Broadway in September.
Nice.
Yes,
so about when this episode's coming out,
so that's going to be pretty cool. And oh my God, it's been a dream. I never got to see him play Hamlet. So this is, it's not Shakespeare, it's Beckett, but like close enough.
Still pretty good. Not too shabby.
Dude, it's Beckett. So, I mean, I'm a theater nerd. So like this, you said, there's the canon, right? And so he's at least he's doing someone in the canon. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And he's with Alex Winter in that. So
wow. Okay. All right. That's really cool.
Bill and Ted do Broadway. Oh my God. My God.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's really cool. Nice.
It's super cool.
Well, I'm excited for you. That sounds really great. But this has been such a blast. You know, thank you for
so much fun
bringing this one to my attention. Like I said, you know, I love this movie, and of course, I love your book. Where can people find it and read your stuff?
Well, so the book, it came out through Chicago Review Press, so it will be anywhere that you get books, like your local brick and mortar store or Costco, like wherever. And if they don't have a copy of it, you can always go and ask them to order one, which is always lovely to support your local independent bookstore. And then, it's available online through all of the, just wherever you feel comfortable. Like I know Amazon now a lot of people are boycotting it, but it's available through all the different places. So and then my website is Cezine.org. So you can see what my upcoming events are on there. And I have an announcements page. And hopefully should have another book coming out in the next couple of years. I don't know. Start working on it. So
Very nice. Looking forward to it. Awesome. Well, this was so much fun. And if anybody out there is listening to it for the first time because they're a fan of your book or of anything else you've done, and you want to hear some more of my stuff, obviously there's a whole back catalog. Over like 165 episodes. By the time this is out, I will have done my Comic-Con panel, so you can check out that panel. It's on this feed, as well as on my YouTube. So just underratedmoviepodcast.com has links to all of that. You can also just look up Underrated Movie Podcast on all of the social medias, Blue Sky, Instagram, all that stuff. We're on all those. And I do have a Patreon as well, patreon.com/underratedmoviepodcast. I call it Underrated Disc 2. Where for $1, $3, or $5 you can get a bunch of benefits, including at certain levels there is a whole bonus podcast that I do that will soon be wrapping up this season, where I am doing, it's called Across the Second Dimension, where I look at films that were originally released in 3D and see if they hold up in 2D. And then if you are a producer level patron, you can even suggest a film for me to cover once you've been a producer for a certain length of time. So check all that stuff out. You can also check out the other podcasts that I do with my buddy Damien called Midnight Film Society, where we talk about more recently released stuff that we've been watching. So yeah, all that, like I said, Underrated Movie Podcast there. But one more time, thank you so much for coming on. This has been an absolute great time for me.
Oh, thank you for having me. I could keep talking about this movie. This is really, I mean, and I could talk about Keanu for hours and hours, but like this was such a treat to get to dive deep into. The Gift, such a fantastic film, and I hope that this episode inspires a lot of people, especially the Raimi heads. Why are y'all
come on,
so on
guys.
this film?
Come on,
Please,
guys. Let's go. Get the word out.
Pull it together, man. We need to do something about this. So this has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Derek, for having me.
Absolutely.
Such a
All
treat.
right, guys. I'll talk to you guys all next time.